Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about retail locking the float, the Citadel huge mistakes, shorts meltdown, and many more in this video. First, we're taking a look at this from Stefan. About 0.2% of Sweden's population has a position in AMC, according to public data from key brokers. Extrapolating to Europe and North America, that means 2.7 million AMC owners. It suffices that each, on average, has less than 100 shares to lock up the entire free float. Now, essentially, this is something we've talked about in the past, where we talked about how easy it is for the retail to lock up the float and how we have been locking up the float for a very, very long time. And what we can obviously get from this is that the float that we've been seeing in AMC, all these shares that are still existing that are able to be bought up, we've concluded that they are synthetics of AMC. And we talked about it's because the shorts are making them in order to suppress the price, in order to not let the price run up, because that's one way of hiding buy pressure. But we've also talked about how because of this, when the squeeze happens, they will obviously have to buy back even more shares and will have to pay an even higher price. Like I said, the more synthetics to create, the higher the floor price. And so this is to talk about just how much of the float we have locked up. And it's extremely important in times like this, while we understand things like this, especially when we are seeing the liquidity issues and the mistakes that are being made by these short hedge funds. If you want to take a look at some further data to look at just really how many shares of AMC are existing out there, you can see what an absolute cluster F of a mess they've created. Now, what we are seeing is essentially the addresses, which includes the crypto tokens of AMC. The AMC tokenization is something that we have talked about. It's something that we've obviously addressed to the SEC. Even though they've ignored it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And this is something that's an extreme matter because it shows truly how many tokens of AMC there are out there. And one thing that we've known was that these tokens were used to obviously as a way of locating and identifying a share of AMC. Now, the biggest question that has still yet to be answered, of course, to this is the fact that are these backed one-to-one? We've known that with FTX and some other institutions that are out there, they claim their tokens were backed one-to-one. And already from those, we knew from FTX, themselves, they owned over 400 million AMC tokens. And if they were backed one-to-one, it meant that they owned up to and close to the 100% of AMC float, which is obviously wasn't possible. But you can see here, there are 2,486 unique holders of AMC, and now they are in a number that is insane, as we're seeing that it's 34 trillion worth of AMC tokens. Now, like I said, these numbers are obviously a crazy amount because we need to know what they are backed to, what they are backed by. Is it one-to-one? Is it 1 to 100? They're obviously different. And that then will obviously answer just from the tokenization of AMC, how many synthetics there already are and how many times the float has already been created out there for AMC. But going back to what we talked about earlier, the more synthetics that they create, obviously the higher the price they have to pay for. And so if we're seeing already from the tokens, the big amount, then you can just imagine what the floor price of AMC will be and just how much they have to buy back and obviously pay for. Now, as we focus on this, we have to look at why this is important, why Citadel and other institutions are making a mistake, and that's why they're worried about these synthetics. You can see here, this headline is so disingenuous. If he was actually worried about the middle class, he would demand trade settlement and speak out against payment for order flow like he did when he didn't have payment for order flow. Now, essentially what this is Ken Griffin calls tariffs huge mistakes hurting middle class. So he's obviously talking about the recent tariffs, and we can obviously see the effect it's had on the overall market. We are seeing trillions of dollars being wiped out every single day right now for the past few days because of these tariffs. Now, he's talking that these tariffs are obviously hurting the middle class. But when we take a deeper look at what's happening and who is being affected by these tariffs, one of the things we talked about is Citadel recently had to close down some of their highly leveraged positions because they were extremely risky. And we saw that they took a loss in February, they took a loss in March, and of course it's very likely that they're going to continue losing money in April. And so the fact that he's talking about this is showing how these tariffs, while it's obviously having an effect on everyone, because I'm sure that if the tariff obviously carries on some cost into consumer costs, it will affect everyone. But the reason why he's calling this out is because it's actually hurting his own firm. Because if he did care about the middle class, then things like trade settlement, things like payment for order flow, in which he exploits the likes of the retail, of the middle class that he's talking about here for his own benefit, he would actually ask to stop it, but no, he obviously continues with it. We've seen how they mismark sales, we've seen how they manipulate price, we've seen how they, use the market makers. And so this is obviously a talk, firstly, that he doesn't care about what he's saying. But more importantly, the fact that he is raising this concern is obviously for himself, but it's to also highlight how this is having a massive effect. We can definitely expect that situations at Citadel is not good right now. They are obviously not in a position where they are making the billions of dollars of profit like they claim to be, and that they continue taking losses on their positions and will likely to have to close down even more leverage positions to the point where most of their positions will have to be covered, to the point where they have to cover the synthetics, which are they're truly the biggest leverage positions of course, AMC and GME. And again, when we talk about how many synthetics there are, this is why it's important. And this is why they're worried about the synthetic positions. You can also see that whilst these shorts are, of course, not in a position as we're seeing trillions of dollars being wiped out, AMC are doing well. Like there wasn't any other successful box office weekend, we know what's happening. Where what we see is this. We talked about the recent Minecraft film, which has obviously been an extremely good film for the year of 2025. We talked about how AMC set records because of this in 2025. And this is something that Adam Aron has even said, that this is only the beginning. So yes, we've seen the most successful weekend in 2025 for AMC, but we're going to be continuously seeing this throughout the rest of the year. And so this is why we talked about institutions are getting liquidated. Because whilst they're worried about the tariffs, whilst these tariffs are hurting their positions, their overexposed positions, their over-leveraged positions, their positions that are losing hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, AMC are in the position where they are making actually, tens and not hundreds of millions of dollars right now because of where we are at. Now, one of the things we talked about and dived deep into yesterday was talking about how AMC's business structure and kind of their plan going into the future. Some of the correlations we saw was how people opt in for premium experiences, and that's what AMC is doing as they are investing in more premium theaters. Now, this is obviously a snowball effect because we talked about investing in premium theater will attract more viewers, attract more customers. That will obviously increase revenue, increase profit, in which they can then make even more premium theaters, and then it obviously attracts even more customers and of course get more revenue. Now, we obviously did a deeper dive in yesterday's video, so feel free to check it out. But this is to talk about why AMC is in a state right now where they can be successful and actually overlap these institutions because of the market conditions. You can also see Wall Street are having a full-blown meltdown over tariffs. And when billionaires start using words like stupidity, you know something off script. They are scared, their swaps are stressed, their margin is crying, and the heavily balanced short positions are wobbling like a Jenga tower in a toddler's playroom. We're entering peak volatility with GME building momentum, XRT short interest off the charts, and the entire market sentiment teetering on one political tweet. This isn't just noise, it's the kind of backdrop squeezes are born in. Now, this is everything we've basically covered in this video. And on top of that, of course, GME as well. And it's essentially understanding that we talked about the swaps position. When you take a look at the likes of UBS, you understand how big the swaps positions are. And you understand how deeply affected they are by these swaps position to the point where potentially UBS could be the next major institution that we see go bankrupt. But furthermore from that is about understanding these aren't the only companies. And again, not just talking about the swaps, but the margin are also extremely tight right now. We talked about Citadel, we talked about Virtue in the past, and again, we've seen much more. And we're very likely to be looking at even more firms to be struggling with the margin very soon, and potentially in the upcoming future and very near future, what we could be seeing is news of firms actually getting margin called, where we see firms and short and hedge funds go bankrupt because they were getting margin called. And this is what we talked about with peak volatility. This is what we talked about with not just GME building momentum, but of course AMC as well, as we go back to the fundamentals. And it's about understanding how they are increasing on their short positions. something that we have to understand is that the more shorts they obviously put in, the more scared and stressed they are. But it goes on with the effect that we talked about. When they're scared, they have to short AMC and GME even more because that's how they suppress the price. But when they short AMC and GME more, they create more synthetics, which then puts more stress into the future of their capital. And so this is why AMC and GME will win, and this is why they're worried. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.